What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Monster Bass channel. We're out here on the beautiful Lake Guntersville doing some post-spawn fishing, and today I'm fishing with a really cool little bait. It's a wake bait, and a wake bait is really kind of a sleeper bait in my opinion, especially post-spawn. As soon as you go post-spawn, still hitting some of those fish that are still shallow, but they're starting to move out deep. And one of the first places that those fish go as soon as they decide to move out deep is around these docks. And some of these fish will use these docks kind of as a transition area, and they'll feed around these docks, feed on bluegill and crappie that live around the docks. And then some of them are just residential fish. They live here all year long. And so we're gonna slow roll this wake bait around some of these docks, see if we can get a fish to blow up on it. But it's just such a cool and awesome technique that we're gonna break down today for you guys and show you how to fish a wake bait around docks. All right, so as you guys can see, a lot of grass in the backs of these pockets, so not optimal for a bait with treble hooks on it. And so really what I'm focusing on are the ends of these docks. And really that's where I like to focus when we're going into the post spawn, are the ends of the docks. And the reason for that is a lot of these fish moved up really shallow. They spawn, they made beds, they made babies, and then that first natural stopping point is gonna be the end of that dock before they decide to either travel on out or just live on the end of that dock the rest of the year. And so really what I'm doing is I'm hitting the shade lines and really using the fronts of these docks and the shade lines of these docks and the ambush position that these docks create for a fish to my advantage, and just slow rolling this wake bait around the ends of these docks, because all this looks like is a big wounded bluegill. If you ever see a fish dying, first thing it kind of starts to do is float to the top in a lot of instances. And and all this looks like is a bluegill is really struggling to get down and struggling to live. And a lot of the times, those bass are going to take advantage of the fact that those bluegill are injured or that they're hurt, and they're going to want to eat them. And so using the ends of these docks not only as shade lines and ambush points, but just as those natural stopping points that those bass are going to use first can come to your advantage. All right, so what you'll notice about this little wake bait that I'm throwing is it's the smaller one. It's that smaller version. And some of you guys are going to be receiving the smaller one. Some of you guys are going to be receiving a little bit bigger one. Obviously this smaller one is going to do a really, really good job of mimicking these bluegill and these brim that are living around these docks. That little bit longer one is going to do a really good job of mimicking stuff like gizzard shad and blueback herring that live around these docks. And that's the thing, is there's so much forage up here right now that these bass can choose from, whether it be bluegill, gizzard shad, threadfin. Everything kind of accumulates around these docks, and they want to live around these docks because just like the bass needs cover to feel safe and to want to ambush something, those bluegill and those smaller bait fish are the same exact way. They want a piece of cover to live on so that they feel safe and they feel like that they're in an area where they're not going to get killed, but little do they know that there's normally a big bass sitting on the ends of one of these docks waiting to eat it. And I'll tell you another great thing to do with this thing is, as you guys can see, we've kind of got this expanse in between these two docks. Slow roll this thing around. I mean, don't be afraid to just throw that thing out there. Fish along a grass line, or fish around a little drop, or fish around some riprap. Those areas where those bass are going to be transitioning from as well. Because it's not like every single bass in the lake just moves up and spawns all at once. They come up in waves. And so you'll have a wave moving up, you'll have a wave moving down, you'll have a wave actively on the bank, spawning. And so this can be a bait, not only can you intersect them coming in, intersect them coming out, but then you can also use it to target cast like at the ends of these docks and get some of those post-spawn fish to eat. So I use the same topwater rod for pretty much every application that I like to throw. That's a 7/6 medium heavy moderate action rod. I got that paired up with some 40-pound braid and a 7-gear ratio reel, and then I run just a small little fluorocarbon leader on the front of this. And what that does is that fluorocarbon isn't as supple and isn't as flexible as that braid. When you give into braid, that braid's just going to fold up on itself because it's so supple. Where that fluorocarbon's got just a little bit more bounce to it, and so it helps to keep wake baits, walking baits, whatever it is, from the front hook actually getting fouled up and your bait getting fouled up when you're trying to walk it. Also, when a bass blows up on it, if they miss it, a lot of the times they'll push it from behind, and there's nothing more frustrating than have a bass hit it, miss it, and then your braid gets all jawed up in your hooks. And so just a small piece of fluorocarbon, this one's obviously worked down to just a couple inches. Usually I make them about a foot and a half. And just running that on there is going to help to keep that bait from getting all jawed up and getting messed up and keep you a lot more efficient on the water. You know, one thing about this 7/6 rod that I like too is it allows me to keep the tip of this rod up, because this bait's unique in the fact that it is a wake bait. So it's made to wake right underneath the water. But the thing is if you put your rod tip down and just start reeling, it'll get a couple inches under the water. You know, and sometimes that can be the bite. You know, sometimes they want a little bit deeper, sometimes they want a little bit higher. But what I like about this longer rod is that I can keep my rod tip up, I can slow roll this thing, and that bait is just gonna inch along right under the surface of the water. And that does such a good job of looking like a dying or wounded bluegill or wounded bait fish. And as you guys see, as I get it closer, I just start to drop that rod tip, because I don't need that rod tip to be up as I get it closer to the boat, and just slow roll it around. The thing is too, if you want to speed it up, you know, one thing that I love to do with a wake bait is actually throw it out there and burn it and kill it. Burn it and then kill it. Burn it and then kill it. And what that looks like is just a bait fish, you know, or a bluegill trying to get away and it dies, and try to get away and it dies. This is a really great way to get a reaction bite, and especially when you're like fishing around the ends of these docks. There's really two methods, and you can go through both of them to try to figure out what the fish want or what the fish are doing. And that's that kind of slow, methodical method. And then there's that burn it and stop. Burn it and stop kind of method. And a lot of the times with that burn it and stop, just like a square bill crankbait or any other bait that you burn and stop like that, you're gonna get those fish to react to it, to just lash out and try to kill it. Post spawn is a great time of year. It's a great time to go and catch some of the biggest fish that you'll catch all year, because they're gonna make a mistake. You know, the fish are just done spawning, they're hungry, they're looking for a big meal. And so learning to throw something like this wake bait around these docks, around this cover, learning how to get those bigger fish to react to this thing can be huge. And I can promise you, with something like a wake bait, like many other topwaters, it's gonna be that bigger than average fish that eats it. And so taking the time to learn this thing, learn where it's effective around you, can be huge, especially right now that we're going into post spawn.